I'd like to call the February 14th Williamson County Commission to order. The first item on the agenda is the invocation by Commissioner Cheryl Wilson and the pledge by Dwight Jones. Please stand. If everyone would push your present button to take roll. Ms. Anderson.
Langston and Bank. Coach.
If Commissioner Ford called and he's unable to attend tonight, so very good. Would like to thank Sheriff's Deputy Lynn Sutton, Andy Ogles, and Mike Brown, and the Sheriff for being here tonight. Appreciate y'all. The next item number 4, is approval of minutes of our County Commission meeting January 17th. These were mailed to each of us. I entertain a motion.
Second.
Commissioner Chalifant on the second, Commissioner Wilson on the motion. All in favor? Is this a voice vote? Or is it? Okay. Opposed? All right, passes unanimously. Then also acceptance of the Highway Commission minutes that were also mailed to you. Commissioner Little on the motion, Commissioner Cook on the second. All in favor? Opposed? They pass unanimously. Next item we have is citizens communications. We have 4 citizens. If you'll come forward to the podium and state your name and address. The first one I have is Mark Shore. And yeah, our rules allow 3 minutes for each person.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, Mr. Mayor, my name is Mark Shore. I live at 1138 West Main Street, but I'm also your Executive Director for the Williamson County Convention and Visitors Bureau. Just want to share with you tonight, we've put at your place a top 10 list, sharing a little bit about why tourism is something that Williamson County should love. We do happen to think the number 1 reason we do our job is for the $346 per household that tourism ultimately ends up saving our taxpayers. But I did want to bring to your attention number 3. It's a new piece of research that we got from the University of Tennessee, which says that in 2009, which is the latest research we have, that tourism spending did not equal the downfall that regular spending, retail spending in Williamson County did. 13.9% was the average downfall of regular spending in 2009, whereas tourism spending in Williamson only fell by 3.9. We're celebrating a year where we have fallen to the number 7 position out of the 95 counties, and we're working hard to maintain that spot. And I am going to be brief tonight. I know that you all could read through the statistics that I've left you. I also want to encourage you, maybe you'll have a chance to get out of here by 8 o'clock. On the History Channel tonight, American Pickers is featuring Alex Ciramelli from Serenity Mason in Williamson County. So we're excited. Anytime there's good publicity about Williamson County, we're excited to talk about that. So Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mark, and appreciate the challenge. We'll try to do our best to get out by 8 o'clock. The second person on our list is April Cantrell. State your name and address, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, Mayor Anderson. My name is April Cantrell. I live at 3502 Refuge Trail in Thompson Station, but I also work in Leapers Fork as the Community Director and Tourism Director there for the Martin Foundation. And I'm coming to you tonight because we are wanting to have your blessing to apply for the Main Street program. And the Main Street program is one that has a program that's organized a sense of way to address a variety of issues in streets in the towns like Franklin, and of course Franklin is a Main Street program. They use a national 4-point approach to the downtown revitalization, going over design, promotion, economic restructuring, and organization, and it's been found to be tried and true and gives solutions that are very, very easy to put in place given the right team players. Beneficial to the county, I believe, is that, one, it's a great place for us to network. 2, it provides PR. 3, it also gives points for the good things that we can do in Leapers Fork to the county's 3-star community program. And I would like to just make note that I've figured out some of this in a recent meeting with Kimberly Nyberg, who is the director of the Main Street program. And while we were having a meeting, she got an email in which it said that they were looking for most romantic places in main streets in Tennessee. And Franklin, as you may know, was one of the top 5. And from that, they were picked up by the Huffington, that PR got out, and now we're #1 on Huffington's post, which is an internet post, and we're #1 Main Street as far as Franklin. So what I'm asking is that a resolution be passed that we can apply for this program with your blessing, and to do so, and hopefully that we will get selected. Thank you.
Thank you, April. The next person is Gerald Van Dam.
My name is Gerald Van Dam. I live at 308 Springhouse Circle, Franklin, Tennessee. All tyranny needs to gain a foothold is for people of good conscience to remain silent. I'm here on Valentine's Day. I don't want to be here. All right? But I'm going to stand here in good conscience and let you know I don't want my taxes to go up. I don't want anybody's taxes to go up. I'm tired of the whole tax discussion. Everybody in this room works hard for their labor and the fruits of their labor. And our founding fathers didn't give a bunch of people the right to take that. I cannot believe that since November 2, I have to come into this room and explain to a bunch of people that saw the election go on November 2 and explain to you that we don't want our taxes to go up. I thought after everyone would have seen the results, you know, and all the talking heads and all the networks and everything else, that you would have gotten it. That we're tired of your reckless spending on whatever it is. We can barely fund the 2 wars we have, whether you agree we need to be in them or not. There is a new government sitting up in Nashville. Governor Haslam's going to rip through the budget, and he's going to find stuff to cut. And when he does, counties and everything else are going to get less money. What you people need to be is leaders, and you need to start figuring out how you're going to save for a rainy day, because the rainy day isn't coming. The rainy day is here. They're going to cut these budgets. Now, there's no indication from the federal government, and that's not your job, that they're going to cut any spending, at least for the next 2 years. But make no mistake, those cuts are coming too, and the states are going to get hit, and then you're going to get even harder. So I strongly suggest that you be the leaders that we elected and start figuring out where you're going to cut the budget instead of telling me that you're going to raise my taxes for either a school we don't need or whatever else. And I'm sure the education guy and every other person's going to come up here and give you 30 minutes of why we need to do this and burn up all this money and tax a bunch of these senior citizens in here who are on fixed incomes. I still have a chance to make it because I'm still working. But a lot of these people sitting in this audience, ladies and gentlemen, do not. They sit on a fixed income. They cast their dies and figured that the government wouldn't spend us into oblivion. So I strongly suggest that I start to see some leadership out of the 22 people, minus the one missing tonight. Thank you.
The next person we have is Russell Little.
I'm Russell Little, 304 Juliana Circle in Franklin. And hello, compatriots. I am very pleased to be here. I think this is the second time I've been in front of this microphone, and I have said more from this microphone than I ever said in 12 years sitting over there. So I'm here tonight to talk on the resolution before you on limiting the debt ceiling. Why? That's the question before you. Why limit the debt ceiling? I come up with two things. First off is, what is debt? Put in your head, what is debt? And only thing, debt is nothing more than a commodity. Debt is money. We use debt to buy things. Where we have gone wrong, as the previous speaker spoke, is where we have gone wrong is in the federal government. Debt has been used to fund operations. Williamson County doesn't do that. You do not have that on your shoulders. Debt, when used properly, is used to purchase land, bricks, and mortar. It is used to better the quality of life in Williamson County. That's what debt is used for. It is nothing more than a commodity. What you've got before you tonight is a resolution to limit the debt. And the question I keep coming back to is, what's good? What's a good number? And the number 550 million has been put out there because it's 10% above what our current level is. Why 10%? Why wasn't it 8%? Why isn't it 50%? Why isn't it some other figure? What is so magical about 10% over where we are? The resolution you have before you is flawed in the fact that there is no financial principle or truth standing behind this arbitrary number. If you want to limit the county debt, then take the time to study, find out. There's got to be a history of somebody out there that knows what they're doing, why they're doing it, having a firm principle behind it. But this resolution is not it. This resolution you've got before you tonight, I call a spade is nothing but a political ploy in my handbook. And that's all I see it for. So is debt good or bad? Is money good or bad? It's neither. It's your use of it, the way you choose to do it. If you want to limit the debt, all you're doing is you're saying that you've got 13 people that don't trust the wisdom of the others. You got to make good decisions, and you only need 13 people to do that. You don't need to stretch any of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lowe. Next, communications and messages. We've got some late filed resolutions that were put on your desk. The first one we may hear is Resolution 2-1115. Do I have an objection to hearing that tonight? I see none. So we'll put 2-1115 at the end of appropriations behind 2-1114. So that makes sense. The next resolution we have is 2-1116, sponsored by Commissioner Hayes. Do I have an objection to hearing that late filed resolution? I see none, so we'll put that at the end of the other, behind 211-9. So 211-16. The third late file resolution we have is 211-17, filed by Commissioner Hancock. Anyone object to hearing that tonight? I see none, so that will go in behind 211-16. That'll be the last resolution of the evening. Next item, I'd like to turn it over to County Mayor Anderson for a proclamation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, County Commissioners. If I could have the Brasso Dynamic U8 soccer team come up. I think they're sitting in the back. As they're making their way up, this is a team, there's 6 of them that have, and I'll read the proclamation in just a moment, but then the coaches, if they would come up and maybe get inside the whale there. Hi, gentlemen. I'd like to read this, Mr. Chairman, if I could. This was
Please do.
a proclamation honoring this U8 soccer team. The U8 soccer team is comprised of 6 players, all from Williamson County, as follows: Nick Dang, Thomas Day, Drew Dotson, Carter Potts, Rashim Sarin, Landon Sloan, and the coaches Stuart Day and Jason Potts. Whereas after a highly successful regular season, the team placed first in the U8 division, a Level 1 tournament in Nashville on June 13, 2010. Then advanced to the Southeastern Region tournament in Kentucky, where they won the regional championship on July the 25th, 2010. And whereas with this win, the team then advanced to the Kick It 3V World Championship held at the ESPN Wide World of Sports Complex in Kissimmee, Florida on January 15th and 17th, 2011, being one of only 4 teams from Tennessee out of more than 200 total teams participating. And whereas this team placed 5th in the U8 silver bracket with 34 teams across the gold, silver, and bronze division, whereas the team members Carter, Potts, and Rashim were the only 2 players to complete in the Level 1 region and the World Championship tournament. So therefore, by my signature this evening, Mayor of Williamson County, I hereby congratulate you and coaches as well, and recognize the level of excellence exemplified by these young individuals. Thank you for the job well done.
Next item on the agenda is reports from county offices. First one would be County Mayor Rogers Anderson.
That's always the fun part, isn't it?
It is.
Mr. Chairman, as always, I'll ask David Coleman to come up and give us a financial snapshot. Immediately after he does this, when we make a few announcements, we're going to show on the overhead a little deeper version of that through Commissioner Jones. So, David?
Mr. Chairman, 2 of the monthly reports that we normally bring to you, the report from the Cool Springs Marriott should be in your packet. For the month of December, we received a check of $39,646. That's about the 3rd or 4th month in a row that we've had a very good report from out there, and just happy to present that to you. Also, the monthly report of the privilege tax. We do have the report from January, and if you'll flip on over to the chart, you can see that January, although down quite a bit from the unusual month we had in November, is above January of 2009, 10, and 10, 11. It's not a huge amount, but we take progress where we can find it, so we're happy to report that. Mr. Chairman, we just were able to close out the month of January on Friday, so we don't have a budget report for you for January, and we'll try to get January and February next meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Coleman.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, I hope you had the opportunity to settle in a little bit, or at least make an effort to see the overhead projection as we displayed the hard work of the Highway Department out on Temple Road, and that finished product it was showing prior to you sitting here tonight. If you'd like to see that at some other time, we'll make arrangements for you. Most of the comments that we've received out there have been very, very favorable. Finally, Mr. Chairman, unless you have some questions towards me, I hope you have in your packet the letter that was written by Dennis Miller, the CEO of Williamson Medical Center, that he sent back in response to the request that Commissioner Barnwell asked me to gain, and it should be in your packet also. Mr. Chairman, that finishes my report for this particular time.
Thank you, Mayor. Any questions for Mayor Anderson? I see none. Thank you. Next report, Williamson County Schools Director, Dr. Mike Looney.
Good evening, Commissioners. Happy Valentine's Day to you and to my family at home. We do have a couple of resolutions that are before you tonight. I'd like to speak to those just very briefly, but prior to doing that, I'd give you an update on the schools. As you know, we've had an inordinate amount of snow days that we've had to utilize this year. Hopefully we're through that. We want to give particular thanks to the Highway Department for helping us clear the roads and some of our school campuses to get our students back in school as quickly as possible. We have one day left, and like I said, hopefully we'll not use that. We have two construction projects that are ongoing. The weather has impeded one of the construction projects a little bit, and that's the Clovercroft Elementary School, but we suspect it will still be finished on time. They've gone to, I think, a 7-day work week. I want to thank you as I talk a little bit about the proposed resolutions before you tonight. I want to talk a little bit about what you did in a previous meeting, and that is you approved the Board of Education's 5-year plan, and I want to thank you so much for that. I think one of the items that got lost in that presentation was the fact that through our rezoning efforts and attempts to work with you, we actually reduced the 5-year capital outlay request by $78 million from the school district for the next 5 years. So we hope that we are signifying to you that we're trying to be good stewards of the taxpayers' money as well. Specifically to the two resolutions that are before you tonight, Resolution 211-1, and with your permission, I'll just go ahead and make my comments about that resolution, and then when you're discussing it, I can have additional staff members come up and ask you questions. And I want to specifically hone in on our request to replace the Hillsborough sewage plant. As you well know, the school board approved that. The education committee approved it with some recommended language change, and then the budget committee is recommending that it be deferred. Since that time, we have been doing a little bit of follow-up in the district. We've been in conversation at the mayor's request with TDEC to find out what their position is about notice of violations. We have received a letter from TDEC today and one more coming. I can't tell you what the contents of the forthcoming one is, other than we believe that there will be some penalties associated with the continued operation of the Hillsborough plant. Essentially what's happened, and I'll refer you to the letter that I've written to the mayor and the associated documents that lay out an executive summary of a study that we initiated back in March of 2010. It was completed in October of 10, talking about the need for a replacement of the plant, some estimated costs. I have included the times and the elements where we have been in violation of our permit in that document for you. And then finally, the last 2 pages of that handout is the letter that we received today from the Department of Environment and Conservation in Nashville. And essentially it indicates to us that this plant is at the end of its life expectancy. It's been in operation for 30 years. We have violated our permit every month this past year, with the exception of the months that school was not in session. More alarmingly, at times we have emitted up to 800% of our permitted allowable E. coli into the neighboring stream in that community. With that in mind, and with the potential impact as it relates to the levying of fines and potential shutdown of Hillsborough School, I do respectfully request that you see fit to approve that funding. As an aside to that, Mrs. Holman has informed me today, as I tried to articulate in previous meetings, this would not require the county to borrow additional money. We believe that we can move money from current construction projects in the district to pay for this replacement plant. And then specifically to 211-2, this relates to a special education settlement in the amount of $119,794. And at the appropriate time, legal staff will be able to answer any questions that you may have. That completes my report.
Thank you, Dr. Looney. Any questions to Dr. Looney? No. Commissioner Hester?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Looney, I don't have a copy of your report, sir.
Okay, it looks like we missed some folks in the back. I have some extra ones, so.
Any other questions for Dr. Looney? Oh, okay. The Dr. One more follow-up, Commissioner Hester. Dr. Looney, I think a lot of the school board members are here tonight. Could we introduce
Yes, sir.
them
With
or
your
get them
permission,
to
I'd
stand?
like for the members of the school board to stand up. Mrs. Anderson, our board chair. Board members. Mrs. Anderson, do you want to recognize each individual board member, or would you like for me to, or? Come on up.
Thank you, Commissioners. Tonight we have with us, we have Janine Moore from the 3rd District. We have Susan Graham representing the 7th District. Janice Mills from the 2nd. Terry Leave from the 6th. Eric Welch from the 10th District. Vicki Vogt from the, I got that backwards, didn't I? 12, excuse me. And Mr. Anderson, Gary Anderson from the 5th District are here this evening.
Thank you, Chairman
Thank you.
Anderson. Thank you. Y'all are welcome. Thanks for being here. Any other committee chairman wishing to speak? Commissioner Jones?
Yes, the tax study committee had asked Mayor Anderson and David Coleman to give us a brief overview of the current financial state of the county, and they have a report that they're going to share with us. I think they have something loaded on the overhead.
Mr. Chairman, bear with us a minute while Dave gets this set up so we can show it up on the overhead. Many of you have been involved and have been coming to some of the tax study committee minutes. Last Monday night at the budget committee meeting, we put together a packet that you've got in your possession. There's probably some 20 to 25 slides. They're getting ready to pass these around to you. This is the identical program that we put together for the budget committee last week. We will go through these slides. Most of the documentation that is involved here will be in the backup, particularly on the pie charts, et cetera, et cetera. Feel free, Jack, Mr. Chairman, to stop us at any time if you have any individual questions that may pertain. Are you ready to go, Dave? Dave and I are going to try to tag team this. This isn't to point out anything other than the facts and the data that we have compiled over the last several months. We started this process every 4 years. We try to educate the new county commissioners, as well as David and myself, where the money, where the revenue comes from for the county that they put together, that we put together to present to you for the final vote in July. This year's revenue stream, just like the gentleman said, that the money is drying up certainly out of Washington, and you'll see how much it's drying up coming from Washington, from the state, and where the taxpayers' money actually is funding the majority of the programs here in Williamson County. The data that you're going to see also will reflect some of the programs that the debt load, which is a resolution here tonight. You'll see some of the debt that has been involved over the last several years. So hope all of you have got the chart. I've talked long enough. We want to get on with this. The first chart that we've laid out for you, many times people talk about in Williamson County the avenue of, well, this is one of the wealthiest counties in the United States. And I hope you can see with both of these charts, we've got them parallel up there. This is your tax return from 2008. This was put together by Syracuse, the latest one we can get our hands on, that it shows that the average adjusted gross income average is in column number 1. We're number 9th in the nation. Again, remember, in our county and our state, which is a blessing, we don't have a state income tax. And that's one of the reasons that businesses like to locate here. So when you look at these numbers and you compare them to some of the other states across the United States, you'll see some certainly counties a lot way behind us. But our average adjusted gross income was number 9, and our wages and salary, we were number 8th in the United States in the end of 2008 with $75,000. David?
Mr. Chairman, if I can just give you a little bit of background to the commission, where we started with the Tax Study Committee and what they asked us to do. Going back to the fall of 2007 is when we first started noticing the drop-off in housing starts, the decline in privilege tax, and I think really when the state and the nation started realizing this recession we were in. And so in the fall of 2007, the mayor asked all of his departments to do a voluntary 10% holdback of their budgets. Each year after that, the message has been that it's going to be a tight budget year, but if things don't improve, next year is going to be tougher. This is to be the 4th year of saying that. We've managed each year by using fund balances and creative budgeting to pull the budgets together. The message that we gave to the Budget Committee last year and to the County Commission in July was, in our opinion, there were 3 options before you to help balance these budgets. The first option was to increase current revenue sources that we already have. And secondly was to create new revenue sources. And thirdly was to make significant cuts in the existing budget. Going before the Tax Study Committee, we looked at all the various sources of revenue coming into the county and the authority of those sources, and we came to the conclusion there are only 4 sources of revenue that this body really has any control over. Most of those are controlled by the state. The privilege tax is $2 a square foot on new construction. That particular tax is already maxed out. We cannot add anything to that. The sales tax, we have another 0.5% of local option sales tax that could be added working with the cities. The motor vehicle tax, we're currently at $25, and that could be increased. And then finally, the property tax, which the last increase was in 2003, 2004.
Ricky, what we have next is a bar graph for the last 10 years showing the unemployment data for not only our county. The county is in blue for those that are sitting in the back and may not be able to see it. The red indicates the state, and the yellow indicates the United States. And you can see how we fared as a county in 2010. Our 2010 numbers, we were after 12 months, we were at 6.5. The state was at 9.4, along with the United States. They were at about 9.4 likewise. So there's been a lot of growth movement that that has come into our county over the last 8 to 10 years, and you can see that. But even that, it's a little alarming, as David has indicated. In our county, the numbers have gone up from the year 2000 that's showing there at about 2% to where we are now at 6.5, even though we've had some growth, substantial growth of new jobs here in Williamson County. And David, if you'll throw that next slide over. And there's your actual numbers. You'll see that on the supporting documentation that's in your packet. And it talks about the labor force, what it's done in our community. The next, excuse me, David, if you'll go to the next one. This one's a real interesting bar graph that we have here. This is going back to the year 2000, and it really should be labeled children growth in our Williamson County public schools in the year, from year to year. This is from year to year. You can see that the numbers may not totally work out exactly what you've got, but we've taken the numbers, and you can see from year, let's just take the last couple of years for an example. From 07 to 08, you had nearly 1,200 growth spurt in children in Williamson County Public Schools, and that goes all the way out. We're anticipating this year, based on some numbers that were given to us, about 850 children moving into our community this coming August when school starts. I think the interesting number that's not there, that and these are round off numbers, but in the year 2002 we had about 20,000 boys and girls in Williamson County Public Schools. This fall, or this August, when school opened up, we had about 31,000. So in 8 years, we've grown 11 to about, it's an incredible growth pattern that still continues here in Williamson County. And all of this will relate back to the building of those school buildings and why we've had to address them. David?
Mr. Chairman, the next chart is the budget history for the county, and this goes back to 1987. And the blue at the bottom of the chart are all the county general funds, debt service funds, highway department, landfill, and the red represents the school's budget. If you look at 2002, the school's budget was right at 59, almost 60% of the total budget. I'm flipping back here. Okay. And this last year, they've grown to 64% of the budget. And all the other funds have gone from 40% down to 35%. Now, you can read this different ways, but to me, Mr. Chairman, what it says that back in the middle 80s, this county commission said we're going to put our emphasis, we're going to put our attention towards having great schools in this county, and I think that indicates that you've done that. Again, the 35% includes the debt even on the schools, so that's the total county budget and the history going back to 1987. The next chart represents sales tax collections. Again, we received this information from Leslie and the schools. Just to kind of educate maybe any new folks that have not worked with sales tax before, the way sales tax works for our budgets, the school system gets 1/2 of the local sales tax regardless of where it's collected in the county. The county general budget gets 1/2% of the local sales tax, but only outside the cities, only what's in the unincorporated areas.
And as you might imagine, that's a fairly small amount. So, but this is a very big item for the school's budget. You can see the decline since 2006 and 7, which represents a decline in retail sales. But then the encouraging thing for 2010 and 11 is based on the percentage of increase through the first 6 months, they're estimating that we're going to come back up to a level equal to 2007, 2008, and we sure hope that works out. The next item, Mr. Chairman, we're going to talk about wheel tax collections. This is one of the 3 areas that you do have some control over. And a very good point was made on this is that even though the wheel tax collections, if you doubled it, could bring in approximately $4 million, we'll talk about that more later, that over the years, wheel tax is a very gradual growth. You don't see a huge amount of growth each year. And that's all we're really trying to show you with that chart, is that wheel tax does grow with increasing numbers of people that come in, but it is a slower growth than some of the other items.
The next charts, if you'll flip over to, are the pie charts that's showing up on the screen. We want to show you where your major sources of revenue come from in the operation of county government. And as you can see, when you look at all the funds on the percentages, now the numbers are written on, you can read those a lot better than the folks in the audience. But of all the approximately $350 million that the revenue comes in that you all have to vote on or have voted on last year, the state sends us about 106 million, or 32% of all the revenue that you get. Now, that's all they're going to send, and most of that's in some special programs. The feds send you 2%, and the rest of it is funded by all of us as taxpayers, and that's 66%. So there's not a lot of money coming out of Washington for Williamson County, mainly because of that graph that goes back to talking about adjusted income and gross income and all that. We're the wealthy county, and we're supposed to take care of ourselves. They won't come out and say it that blunt, but many of you that have been around a long time understand under the BEP formula that schools get, we're penalized because we do too much down here. Well, that's a telltale graph that if you want to run for office, you need to concentrate on your local representative, and that's great that they're here. I don't mind saying that, because you're the ones that make the decisions for their dollars. The boys and girls in Washington don't help out much down here in dollars and cents. Now, there's federal roads and that can be an argument, but dollars coming in here to run our programs, to run our schools, are just not here. David? This is how your property tax, is this one yours or mine? This is, we're not used to double teaming. The property tax revenue is distributed by funds. This just shows where that money is actually by property tax, not all funds, but just your property tax, where that money goes back out. And clearly, you can look at the different percentages where that money rolls out. The third pie chart is how things are expended out. You've thought, all of us have thought for a long time, that public education, which drives so much of our low unemployment, the reason people move here, it's not to say they don't move here for private schools or be homeschooled, but they move here because of this number, that's 61.5% that you're funding for public education. You have already voted for some things since September, but many of the predecessors before you, and some of us standing around here since 1988, David will show you, that number, that percentage has increased from about 57, 58% to that 62, 63%, because that's what you said was important on the capital as well as the operating. I think the next chart David's going to cover, this one may be the telltale of all, and this will tell you exactly what's happening in the construction business.
He loves pie charts, that's why we gave him those. This chart really is very telling.
It's a chart of the property tax in pennies that were replaced with privilege taxes. If you look at the 2006, 2007 year, we brought in almost $10 million in privilege tax that year. That replaced 23.5 cents of property tax. Had we not had the privilege tax, we would have had to raise property tax 23.5 cents to make our budget. But we did have the privilege tax, and that avoided that much tax. But then you can see starting in 2007-8 how that has come down dramatically, and in the current year, we're replacing less than 2 cents in property tax. The funds from privilege taxes were primarily used to fund the debt for new school buildings. Each July, we would appropriate through resolution the privilege tax to the Rural Debt Service Fund and the General Debt Service Fund for high schools. So we've used that money, we've used it appropriately to build and pay for those buildings, but you can see what's happened to that source of revenue. Now, we'll see in just a few minutes, the debt is still there. The debt has not gone away, but that source of paying that debt has really gone down. And we've got the page behind that that just gives you the detailed information to back up those numbers. This next chart's kind of funny, and they allowed me to put it in there. The only thing I'm really trying to show you with this chart is the red line is the county tax rate. Back in 2000, 2001, our rate was $2.96. We do a reappraisal every 5 years. Historically, every time we do a reappraisal, the appraised value of our properties go up. That's the blue line. And as the appraised value of property goes up, by state law, we have to drop the property tax rate because in a reappraisal year, you have to be revenue neutral. You can't bring in any additional revenue just by doing a reappraisal. So we've gone from $2.96 in 2001 to $2.31 where we are today, and that's because we're very fortunate that our appraised value of property continues to climb in this county. And in those years that it was climbing, we were able to bring in additional revenue from property tax without raising the rate.
Interesting tidbit on that. The assessed value that you see climbing there, we're only behind Knox, Davidson, Shelby, I guess Hamilton County. We're neck and neck with Hamilton County, the size of our county as compared to the rest of the big boys. David? Oftentimes we hear, what are you doing to hold expenses in county general? What are we doing? And all of you that have served on the budget committee since back '02, we've allowed absolutely no increase, authorized increase in operating expenditure since '02. You will notice in '03, we cut 5%, asked all elected officials, all department heads to take 5% off their operating, and they complied. In 2008 and 9, David talks about, we asked for a volunteer return of 10% without it being mandatory, so you didn't have to vote on it. They did that. And then again in '09, 10, we asked for another 10%. The salary increases that we have allowed for our employees here, as you can see, is 332 all the way up for the last several years. So it's a telltale sign when you have a growing, and that's why those two numbers differentiate between as one drops, lowers itself, and the other one goes up. Okay, Dave? Through your efforts over the last several years, anytime we've taken advantage of refinancing, we do that. And you can see that's nearly $11 million, $10 million. And all of you know this year that the pennies generate about $685,000. So by refinancing a lot of that, we're rolling it out. And I should point out for you that may not know this, that anytime we refinance something, we never extend it, and we never extend the term. If we've got a 20-year note, and that's except for the, I guess I'm saying, Build America bonds, I think that's the only ones we've done The Build America bonds were a special program that Washington made available for us that we could borrow money on a discount of 0.35 off from the rate. We took advantage of that. You all took advantage of it, and we did it. But the rest of our borrowing power has always been in 20 years and down. If we refinance something, we never extend it out. If it doesn't make sense, we're not going to pick that up and take it out 20 years. We're just going to refinance it at 15 or 13 or whatever the best interest rate. So through your efforts, you've done $11 million. David? This is Mr. Coleman's math. He's the accountant.
Mr. Chairman, this chart is familiar to most of you. We give you this each July when we do our budget. This is an accounting of all the fund balances, and at July the 1st of 2010, we had a combined fund balance of $87 million. And again, just for those in the audience and those that are new to understand that a little bit better, each one of those funds carries its own fund balance. The county general fund cannot give money to the highway department to build roads. The highway department cannot give money to the schools to run the schools. The debt service funds cannot give their fund balance to another fund. Most of that has to do with the way we set our tax structure for each of those funds. So the combined total is $87 million, but each of those funds has to maintain its own fund balance and cannot be shared with other funds. If you come all the way over to the right side, at the bottom you'll see a negative $22 million. In order to make the budget work that we're in now, and we talked about earlier how tight it was getting, we have budgeted a $22 million drawdown of the fund balance. Now, we will make up some of that, but we won't make it all up. The way we make up drawdowns and fund balances is if we collect additional revenue over what we budgeted, or if departments turn in expenditures from their budget that they do not actually spend. And that's how we make up fund balance. But I've been here 16 years. That's the largest drawdown we've ever had on fund balance. And just going into next year, we need to be very mindful of that, especially in the general fund is the fund that Moody's Investment Service looks at when they set our bond rating. We're a AAA rated county, the only one in the state of Tennessee. Hamilton County, if they haven't already, will be coming on, but we've had ours for about 5 years. But it's very important to maintain those fund balances if we're going to maintain that kind of bond rating, which as long as we're building school buildings and other projects and going out in the market to borrow money, that is very important. The next chart, Mr. Chairman, again, one that you've seen many times. It's dealing with our estimated property taxes that we hope to collect based on the rate of $2.31. Again, you see how it's divided by each fund. Just a note to the far right, also to make the budget work last year, we shifted 11 cents to the schools from other funds in the form of tax dollars. By shifting the pennies, not fund balance, but by shifting the pennies, we shifted money into the schools to make that budget work last year. If you'll see towards the middle of the page, the schools, again, generate about $687,000 at this time per penny. They do have to share that with the Franklin Special School District, so that brings them down to about $618,000 per penny. That number will change between now and the end of the year, but this being a reappraisal year and getting a certified rate, we really don't know what that figure is going to be at this time. The next chart, and this will be a topic for discussion tonight, is our county debt. You received in the fall a debt book of June the 30th, 2010, and what our debt was at that time. Since that time, we had a bond issue in the fall for schools, and we had a refinancing just before Christmas. So we've updated all those figures, and we're calling this June 30th, 2011 because it's not in our plans to borrow any money between now and the end of the year, and we already know what our debt service requirements are, so this should be pretty close. So by June the 30th of 2011, we'll be at about $510 million total debt. Again, look at the school debt as a percentage of the total debt, 71.6%. And again, there's two sides to that. The fact that this county commission has stepped up to the plate and funded schools and built schools when they were needed, and we have not been going out and borrowing money for frivolous projects. The last 2 to 3 years, we have not borrowed any money except for schools. That just shows the level of commitment that this body has made towards supporting the school system. Another important factor in that schedule at the bottom, 5, 10, 15 years, you'll see by the end of 15 years, we will have retired 87% of our debt. That's a good percentage. We can live up to that. Speaks well of this county. The next chart, Dave, this just gives you a summary of the county debt. It's in the debt book that you received, and you'll get another one of those when we update that. The purpose of this chart is to show you the requirements of the annual debt service over the next 4 or 5 years. We're sitting right at that $50 million mark of debt payments, principal and interest. And we really don't get any drop-off until you get out to about 2015 or 2016. So again, that's debt that's required to be paid. It's not an option. Once we get past that, you start seeing that we have some flexibility and we have some more capacity there to borrow additional debt. But that's just to let you see where we are on the total debt this time.
You've got 2 more to go. David? All right, how do we stack up in Williamson County with our counterparts in the Middle Tennessee area? And we have just picked that corridor in the Middle Tennessee area to give you an idea of where we rank. The property tax rate, you'll notice where it says Williamson County, where it's 13. Our unincorporated rate is $2.31 a hundred. That rate varies if you're inside the city, inside special school district, inside the different areas inside of our cities. But the county rate's $2.31. There are 12 counties ahead of that have a higher rate than we do. Now, what helps us, as you all know, is that assessed value that we have. No need playing around with that. But the fact of it is there's 12 ahead of us. The next column is the local sales tax. You heard David talk about how the money is divided between the schools, the city, who gets what, the state. There's 10 ahead of us on where the decision you have to make in the tax study, Ricky. And then the motor vehicle rate, everyone in here, if you have a vehicle, you come in, you pay $49.75. 25 of that we keep. We distribute it out either to schools or the highway. The other 25 goes back to the state, where there are 9 others with higher rates than what we've currently got on the market. And the final chart is some early projections, Ricky, that you have seen before, but maybe some of the others haven't.
Mr. Chairman, we presented this to the Tax Study Committee a couple of months ago for the first time. As again, we summarize those 3 areas that this body has in control over: property tax, sales tax. We could do an additional ½ cent working with the cities. We estimate if the sales tax were increased that ½ percent, that we could bring in approximately $7 to $8 million additional dollars each year, primarily to the schools. On the wheel sticker, we're currently at $25. If you increase that $5, you're talking about $800,000. If you double it, you'd be bringing in approximately $4 million additional funds. So those are just the estimates if either one of those were the choice that you made.
While Dave is taking this off, Ricky, Commissioner Jones, Mr. Chairman, that completes what we wanted to get out to you all, so you'd be on the same songbook as you make your decisions as we go down the road.
Thank you.
We'll entertain any questions if you have them, John.
Any commissioner got a question?
Mr. Barney.
I would just like to give some clarification points to a meeting we had in December of the Tax Study Committee. We talked about two different items. One was the law of 2006 and one was valuation. In conversations with the maker of that 2006 law, who was Deborah Maggart from Sumner County, the intent of the law was to ensure that local communities did very good due diligence to make sure they were receiving the best possible return on their investment in their hospitals. Had nothing to do with establishing any restricted funds. Number two, I've spoke with several counties who've sold their hospitals since 2006 and was informed that the Attorney General has not placed any restrictions on how they use their funds. It's a local decision. And realistically, the law was written to ensure that counties made the most financial reward and utilized the funds to the benefit of all county residents. Now, getting to valuation, I felt that our presenter grossly undervalued our hospital. And if you remember correctly, I asked him if 8 to 10 times EBITDA was the correct calculation. He said yes. And EBITDA is the earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. Now, if you remember, he valued the hospital about $111 million. The EBITDA for June 30th, 2010 for the hospital was approximately $21 million, which values the facility at between $167 and $209 million. Given the fact they've got about $60 million in cash, that ups its value between $228 million and $270 million. We would have to pay off all the debt if we would sell the hospital, which is about $38 million, including the taxpayer subsidy. And that would give us a net proceeds between $189 million and $231 million. Now, with the general debt, not total debt, at June 30th being $245 million, if we would so choose to reduce our debt based on those proceeds, we could reduce our general debt between 77 and 94%. And so I just wanted to get those clarification points out there based on that meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson.
Thank you.
Let's see. Moving on, item number 9, elections and appointments. We have none. Consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion. Notaries are on the consent agenda. Commissioner Little, the motion. Do I have a second? Second. Commissioner Bain, the second. That's loaded on the machine. All in favor, push the yes button. Opposed, your no button. Anyone like to change their vote? Record the vote, Ms. Anderson. All right. Consent agenda passes. No unfinished business. Moving on to new business, no zoning. The first resolution we have is 211-1, resolution requesting the Williamson County Board of County Commissioners approval of an intent to fund $1 million for wastewater upgrades at Hillsborough and certain improvements at Centennial High School. School board was 10-4, 1 no. Education, Ms. Brockman?
Education was 7 yes, 0 no as amended.
Budget, Commissioner Green?
Budget committee voted 5-0 to defer.
Explanation, let's see, Commissioner Smith, I guess. You, okay, Commissioner Brockman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This resolution, which Superintendent Looney spoke to earlier, is for the improvements at Hillsborough, along with certain improvements at Centennial High School. They were put together. The bulk of the funding is obviously going to upgrade the wastewater system at Hillsborough. The only thing I perhaps would like to get on the floor is that the amendment, as approved by Education, indicates that the first source of funding will be from funds left from other capital projects, and Superintendent Looney indicated that that would likely be the case, and so I hope you will support this resolution. So I would ask that we do I need to get the amendment on the floor, or can it go as is?
No, you would need to make an amendment.
Okay, I ask that we amend this to indicate that the first source of funding will be from funds left from other capital projects.
Second.
Okay. Commissioner Brockman on the motion, Commissioner Smith on the second. Discussion on the amendment. I assume, Steve, you don't want, you want to speak to the whole resolution. Commissioner Little, you want to speak to the amendment?
Yes. I'd like to consider if she would be, excuse me, since
Wait just a
Dr.
minute.
Looney, I'm sorry.
Wait just a minute. Yes, Ms. Anderson?
We don't show that you had the motion or you made a second for the actual
Oh.
resolution.
I'm sorry. Well, let's back up. We need a motion for
Move
the
for
resolution.
approval.
Okay. Proper motion second. Now, do we need to do it on the amendment, or we still got it? Okay. My bad. Go ahead, Commissioner Little.
Yes, on the amendment on the floor, it states the first source of funding would be from funds left from other capital projects. Dr. Looney alluded that they were going to have those funds, and I would like to change that from first choice to be the source of funding, to be from other capital projects and no borrowed money.
It says the first source. It doesn't say choice.
I would like to strike the first source and just say that the first out of that, say the source of funding be from capital project, leftover capital projects.
So you're going to do that as a motion, or do you want to?
Well,
If
the
you
first
were-
choice is if she would agree to the change. If not, then I would have to make a motion to amend it.
Correct.
I don't want to handcuff us, even though there's every indication that the funding will be available from the other capital projects. I just want to make sure that we're not having unintended consequences if we support this. I think this indicates that that's where the funds will come from, and I have to trust the school superintendent that will be the case. But that's my response.
Okay.
I would like to amend her amendment to strike the first and say the source of funding would be from other capital projects.
Okay. Got a proper motion and a second. Commissioner Davis? Discussion on the second amendment. I see none. You ready to vote on
The amended amendment?
Yes. Yeah. Commissioner Danner or Commissioner Wilson, you didn't want to speak to the second. Did you want to speak to the second amendment? Okay. Well, we'll get to you. Yeah, we'll get to you. Are you ready, Linda? Okay, you ready to vote? We're voting on the second amendment, the amendment to Ms. Brockman's amendment. All in favor, push the yes button. Opposed, your no button. Anyone wishing to change their vote? Record the vote, Ms. Anderson.
22 yes, 1 no.
Okay, now back to the original amendment. Any discussion on that? Commissioner Wilson or Danner, you want to speak to the?
Yes.
Deleted the word first.
Yeah.
So you still have the amendment saying the source of funding will be.
Any discussion on the amendment? If not, we're ready to vote? Or do you have it loaded, Linda?
Is that what they're voting on now?
Yeah, the amendment.
That, what I've got loaded?
No.
First should be out of it.
Okay, we'll give it just a second.
Okay, no hurry. Are we ready to vote? All in favor of the amendment, push the yes button. Opposed, your no button. Anyone wishing to change their vote? Record the vote, Ms. Anderson.
22 yes, 1 no.
Okay, now back to the original resolution. I think, let's see, Commissioner Smith, well, let's see here. Where's number 1? Yeah, got wiped out. Commissioner Smith, if you'd like to speak to the resolution as amended.
Similar to the resolution last month that we had that everybody seemed to be very supportive of. Same situation of using remaining funds from previous capital projects to add classrooms at Hillsborough School. And in fact, we have some evidence from TDEC tonight that without this project that we're talking about tonight, that those classrooms that we just approved last month won't be approved to be built. So it seems to me if it was okay with everybody last month, it ought to be all right this month to use funds from previous projects that were unspent. And I support it and would ask for your support. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Smith. Commissioner Wilson?
No.
Was it? No, I'm sorry, Commissioner Danner.
Yes, thank you. I actually made the motion in the Education Committee to use leftover funding. So if this goes through, I'll be very glad that we changed it to definitely use leftover capital improvement funding as opposed to acquiring new debt. However, in the Budget Committee, I need to know before I could support this, what happened to the idea, the mayor suggested having the Highway Department go and look at the football field. The Centennial football field is in this, and I very much support Centennial High School getting the infrastructure needs, the things they need to become equivalent to the other high schools. However, I really like that idea of using our own internal resources to go before we just hand over $300,000 and a bidding process to have that fixed. So I could not support this without knowing what happened to that suggestion.
Well, if I may, Commissioner Danner, right now we're voting on the entire resolution. You could make an amendment to pull that out to let the Highway Department defer that.
If I may speak to
Yes.
what the Budget Committee did.
Yes.
Excuse me. When we originally heard this resolution, we were looking for some additional information on the status of the sewer system at Hillsborough School. We did not have that information at that time. I think that Dr. Looney has cleared this up tonight. On the resolution to the $300,000 to improve the football field at the Centennial, we felt that needed to be looked at by the Recreation Department and the Highway Department before we move forward on this resolution. And that's our reason for deferring the resolution. So I can, to go ahead, I can make a motion to defer, and if we have discussion or not, get a second, however you want to handle that.
A second.
Okay, we've got a proper motion and second. And am I correct, Jeff? That's non-debatable. So
You can debate whether to, the motion to defer is debatable. The main motion is not debatable until this motion is voted on.
So we can debate.
You can debate the motion to defer only, not the main motion or the resolution.
Clear as mud.
That's what I do.
Let's see here. Who wants to speak to the motion to defer? Commissioner Jones?
On the motion to defer, are we just talking about 1 month? Commissioner Green, or how long are we talking?
Our intent at that time was to get an opportunity to get a clarification on the $700,000 to improve the sewer system based on some information from TDEC and also some other federal agencies. And also on the $300,000 for Centennial, I felt, and the Budget Committee felt, that the highway would go out there and examine it, with the highway department involved, and see if they could rectify that at much less cost than $300,000. So that was why the reason for deferral.
Would the timetable be about a month?
Yes, what we were asking for was additional information.
Okay. Who would like to speak to the deferral? Commissioner Barnwell?
Well, I'm not speaking to deferral as such, but I'd like to make a motion that we eliminate the $300,000 out of this particular resolution and go forward with the $900,000. Can't do it?
Can't do it at this time. We'll have to vote on the deferral.
Okay.
And then, if that fails,
Okay.
we can do that at that time. Anybody wishing to speak to the deferral? Commissioner Davis?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There was a second reason that the Budget Committee voted, or at least some members of the Budget Committee voted to defer, and that is we have a process for capital projects, and we have a long-term plan for this, and we have an annual plan that we vote on for this. And these projects are both seen as emergencies the way they're coming up, but come to find out they're not emergencies. We've known about them for years, but they were not on the capital budget before. So part of the reason I voted to defer was let's use the process that we have in place and address these when they should be addressed, along with other capital projects and other needs. We're addressing them today way too early in that process, and I do agree there are times when there are emergencies, but even in this new information, which wasn't available last week, apparently the school system's known about the sewer problem for 24 months, and now it's an emergency to fix it right away. Centennial's been known about it for many, many years too. So there was a big reason for my vote to defer, other than just let's have the county highway department look at it, and I think we still ought to defer that again for the same reason.
Thank you, Commissioner Davis. Anybody wishing to speak to the deferral? Commissioner Hancock?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Since the $300,000 for the football field seems to be the bone of contention, I think a motion to defer the entire resolution is ill-advised. We can come back after we get this motion off the floor if we choose not to defer the entire resolution and amend the $300 out at this time and let that come back at a later date. If I'm reading, the bone of contention was the $300,000.
Well, right now,
He can make the statement, but it's still on the deferral.
yeah, we still got to get through the deferral first. So if it's deferred, it'll come back next month. Anybody wishing to speak to the deferral? Commissioner Brockman?
I'd just like to say I don't support the deferral for that one reason, and that is that you've got a public health issue with this wastewater system at Hillsborough School, and I think we need to show that we are responsible in this matter, and that we need to absolutely fund that fix out there, because it's paramount, and I think it is an emergency, and I think perhaps they have known about it, but now it's gotten the recent assessment by TDEC, and I think the letter from TDEC speaks to this very succinctly, and I think we need to support that request. That's why I can't defer the whole motion, because of that aspect.
Thank you, Commissioner Brockman. Anyone else wishing to speak to the deferral? Commissioner Cook?
Can we have Dr. Looney come up and tell us what the deferral would do?
Dr. Looney?
Will that affect the building? Because I know you want to build 6 classrooms. Will they, and you were going to start soon.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Commissioners. First of all, I can't express to you enough how important this sewage treatment plant is at this point in time. We're releasing up to 800% our permitted level of E. coli into a stream in this county. The TDEC essentially has given us a cease and desist order as it relates to the construction of the additional classrooms. As this body well knows, you've authorized the funding of that. We have an architect working on that and intend to break ground on it as soon as possible. So any deferral by this body as it relates to the septic system could potentially have an impact on that facility being ready for the fall. I would like to also add, we have been working very closely with TDEC. It's a true statement that we've known about this plant for some time. We've been working hand in hand with TDEC to try to get by without replacing the plant as long as possible. That's why the board commissioned the study last March, with the results of that study coming just this last October. Since that study was completed, we have failed 3 out of the 4 months of E. coli testing. And so it appears that the problem is getting more significant and rather quickly. And so from my perspective as the superintendent of education, I do consider this an emergency. It's not a capacity issue. We're only utilizing 14% of the school's capacity or the treatment facility's capacity. It's just not working anymore, and our certified sewage treatment plant operator can't figure out how to make the system come into compliance. We're missing it in E. coli, we're missing it in total solids, suspended solids, we're missing it in ammonia and in a variety of other areas. So it's a 30-year-old plant, and it needs to be replaced.
Follow up, Commissioner Cook?
No.
No. Anyone else like to speak to the deferral? Commissioner Hayes?
Would you address the Centennial program and why it was tacked onto this?
Yes, ma'am. And actually, the Centennial Project and the treatment project are both on the capital plan that was submitted to this body and approved by the body. The Centennial Project honestly started last year. We had, as this body knows, we had a lot of issues with the quality of the football playing surface at Centennial, primarily because we didn't take care of it like it should have been taken care of. That's just the honest truth. So we readdressed that. We rehabilitated the field, but in that process, we discovered that along the perimeter of the football field, where the track begins, there's a drainage ditch. And the reason we became aware of that is because we had an athlete that was fairly severely injured when he ran off the football field and hit the ditch and messed up his ankle. So we started looking at how to remediate that, and we've tried adding soil to the sides of the track surface where the ditch is. They end up getting washed down, and the only solution that our engineers could come up with was to raise the drainage system and then raise the soil around the drainage system so that that problem is mitigated. It's part of our strategic, it's part of our capital plan. Is it an emergency? Well, it's an emergency in the context that we have athletes being injured. Could we go a season and nobody else get injured? Potentially. The question becomes, is the risk worth the immediate savings? And I can't answer that. That's above my pay grade.
Follow up, Commissioner Hayes. Anyone else that hadn't spoken to the deferral? Commissioner Langston?
I support this amendment because I've known the people having I think, Dr. Looney, am I correct, that to get to the field, parents, students, and everyone else have to go through this drainage ditch or this drainage area?
Certainly the athletes do. If you're playing on the field, yes, sir, that would be a true statement.
And it has presented a health and safety issue for over a period of time, has it not?
Yes, sir, I would say that this is something that we should have addressed years ago, but we didn't, and so here we are.
The fact that we are not asking for any new money and that this be done out of the school, but I would support this.
Anyone else that hasn't spoken to the deferral? You ready to vote? If you're in favor of deferring, push the yes button. Opposed, your no button. Anyone wishing to change their vote? Record the vote, Ms. Anderson.
7 yes, 16 no.
All right, we're back on the original resolution as amended. I know we had a bunch of people want to speak. Are you ready to vote? Commissioner Barnwell?
Okay, we're going to vote on the whole resolution versus?
As amended, correct.
And the as amended is what? The money's coming from, okay.
Yeah, from already. So.
I thought we talked about breaking these up and voting on them.
Not yet? Unless
Not
you wanna
yet.
make
I would move to break them up and vote on them.
proper motion. Do we have a second? Commissioner Danner on the second. So anyone want to address?
It's technically a motion to divide, and it's a non-debatable motion.
There we go. Ready to vote?
Just two projects separate.
My understanding of the motion is to divide the two projects, and the motion to divide is non-debatable.
So that would, yeah. Commissioner Jones?
If we approve this motion to divide, then we'll vote on the project separately?
Correct.
Okay, and if we vote for one, can then there be a motion to defer the other and
They
after?
will be handled as separate resolutions at
Okay.
that point.
Okay.
Are you ready, Linda? We're ready to vote? That the motion is to divide the resolution. So there's two projects on the resolution, and it will separate them, and we'll vote on them individually. If you're in favor of that, push the yes button. Opposed, your no button. Anyone wishing to change their vote? Record the vote, Ms. Anderson.
18 yes, 5 no.
Okay. So now we're looking at, for lack of better terms, I'm going to call it 211-1A and 1B. Or maybe 1C for Centennial, I don't know. Y'all pick it out. So, the Hillsborough comes first in the resolution, so we will vote on that. The $700,000 for the sewer plant at Hillsborough School. Any discussion on that?
The amendment still carries.
Yeah, leftover funds. Ready? If you're ready to vote, if you're in favor of the Hillsborough project, push yes. Opposed, no. Anyone wishing to change their vote? Record the vote, Ms. Anderson.
20 yes, 3 no.
The motion passes. Second item on this resolution is the maintenance issue at Centennial High School. Any discussion on that? Okay.
Well, I just had to defer to Commissioner Danner on this one. I would too like to know where we're at with the highway department that was going to go out and look at this particular area and see if there was something they could do in saving us some money.
If I may, I don't think they've had time since it was brought up at budget last Monday with the snow and all that. They just,
Okay, well, we've asked Eddie Hood and Doug Hood both to go out and look at that site. Immediately after the budget meeting, we were also asked to look at another school site, so they will make an attempt to do that. That was on Tuesday we asked them to do it, and we've had the snow on Wednesday and Thursday, so they haven't had an opportunity to get out there.
okay, thank you. So we've got a motion, Commissioner Beathard, to defer till when? Till next,
Till that report can come in.
okay. Is that a good enough date? And second, Commissioner Barnwell. Commissioner Danner? Okay, you good? Commissioner Smith?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
On the
I was just
deferral.
on, I'm sorry,
On the deferral.
not on the deferral.
Okay. Anybody wishing to speak to the deferral? Not, you ready to vote? We've got it loaded on the machine, Linda. If you're in favor of deferring till the report comes back in, push the yes button. Opposed, your no button. Anyone wishing to change your vote? Record the vote, Ms. Anderson.
21 yes, 2 no.
It's deferred. Moving right along. Resolution 211-2. Resolution appropriating $119,794 from undesignated fund balance to pay special education judgment and settlement. School Board, 11 yes, 0 no. Education?
7 yes, 0 no.
Budget?
Budget Committee, 5, 4, 0 against.
And I need a motion.
Move for approval.
Proper motion. Commissioner Salafant, second. Commissioner Brockman, you want to speak to this?
Chairman, this is a payment for special education judgment and settlement, and it really is, the specifics of it are not really that we can discuss, but this is an amount of money that needs to be funded, needs to be used for this purpose.
Okay. Commissioner Barnwell?
Yes, Dr. Looney, or may you be? A question I have regarding this is we see these every now and again, and I'd be curious to see some sort of report over the last several years of how much it's costing us per year for all of these, and how do we compare with other systems of similar size? Is that possible to get?
Certainly.
I'd like to see that, just to see where we stand. You know, it's 100,000 here, 100,000 there, and it'd be nice to know how we stand in relation to other school systems and how much we're paying.
We're glad to furnish this body that report.
Okay, thank you.
You'd be glad to know this had nothing to do with Centennial football field.
Thank you. Any further discussion? You ready to vote? You got it loaded, Linda? If you approve of 211-2, push the yes button. Opposed, your no button. Anyone wishing to change their vote, do so now. Record the vote, Ms. Anderson.
23 yes.
Resolution passes. Resolution 211-4, resolution appropriating and amending the 2010-2011 Sheriff's Office Field Division budget by $10,255. Revenues to come from state reimbursements. Entertain a motion.
Second.
Commissioner Williams, Commissioner Salafant, second. Law Enforcement Public Safety Committee.
6, 4, 0 against.
Thank you. Budget Committee, Mr. Green.
Budget Committee voted 5, 4, 0 against.
Explanation, Commissioner Langston.
This is simply a reimbursement for transporting prisoners from across the state or even out of state.
Very good. Any questions? I see none. You ready to vote? All in favor, push the yes button. Opposed, your no button. Anyone wishing to change their vote, do so at this time. Record the vote, Ms. Anderson.
23 yes.
Resolution passes unanimously. Resolution 211-5, resolution appropriating and amending the 2010-11 animal control budget by $5,000. Revenues to come from private donations.
Second.
Commissioner Hayes and Commissioner Cook, the second. Budget Committee.
5, 4, 0 against.
Explanation, Commissioner Hayes.
Yes, we received $5,000 in donations. We get them from various people who are animal friendly, sometimes memorials, sometimes people just honoring other people or lost animals. This $5,000 has to come through us to get put in the animal control budget, and so that's what we're requesting. It was a gift to animal control.
Any questions for the maker? I see none. You ready to vote? In favor of Resolution 211-5, push the yes button. Opposed, your no button. Anyone wishing to change their vote, do so now. Record the vote, Ms. Anderson.
23 yes.
Passes unanimously. Resolution 211-8, resolution appropriating and amending the 2010-11 Williamson County Public Library budget by $34,327.52. Revenues to come from donations. Entertain a motion. Commissioner Barnwell, Commissioner Davis, the second. Committee report, Library Trustees.
5, 4, 0 against.
Budget Committee.
Budget Committee, 5, 4, 0 against.
Explanation, Commissioner Barnwell.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this is just a normal accounting agreement, donations into the system so that we can utilize them as a library. We do this 3 or 4 times a year.
Thank you. Any discussion? I see none. You ready to vote? If you're in favor of 211-8, push the yes button. Opposed, your no button. Anyone wishing to change their vote, do so now. Record the vote, Ms. Anderson. Passes unanimously. A resolution appropriating and amending the capital projects emergency management budget by $55,000 for emergency management equipment, revenues to come from Homeland Security grant funds. Commissioner Green, the motion, Commissioner Wilson, the second. Budget Committee.
Budget Committee 5-4-0 against.
Explanation, Commissioner Green.
Yes, this is monies passed through from a resolution we passed in 2009. This passed on to Williamson County Commission in order to the Williamson County may participate in a Homeland Security grant program, and it's in response to preparedness and training for domestic terrorism, including nuclear, biological, and chemical weapons. And it's the training to be prepared for those events.
Thank you, Commissioner Green. Commissioner Chalfant?
Just as a point, this came before a meeting tonight, just before this meeting,
Oh, okay.
and it passed law enforcement public safety 6-0.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
There's no additional funds required.
No, this is incoming.
Any discussion on this? Ready to vote? All in favor of 211-10, push the yes button. Opposed, your no button. Anyone wishing to change their vote, do so now. Record the vote, Ms. Anderson. Resolution passes. Resolution 2-11-11, resolution authorizing the Williamson County Mayor to execute a grant agreement with the State of Tennessee Department of Transportation and amending the 2010-2011 Transportation Management Association, or TMA, budget. Budget Committee?
5-4-0 against.
And move approval. Need a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Need a second. Second. Commissioner Brockman, the second. Okay, explanation, Commissioner Green.
This is passed through money from the state of, the TDOT through the State Department of Transportation for $159,000 to address the transportation-related issues negatively impacting the air quality in Williamson County, and then it requires no additional funds.
Commissioner Brockman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Specifically, what are they going to suggest this funding be used for? You know?
I have to defer to the county mayor on that as to what they're specifically going to use.
I mean, I see the next one is education, but I wondered how we're going to clean up our air. You know me.
Commissioner, Mr. Chairman, can I have Debbie to come up? The next 4 county commission resolutions, you're going to want to ask those questions. On most of these resolutions, they're coming down through TDOT, through the federal government, just passing on. You're the accountability ledger on that, but the money never stops. It directly goes into the TMA. So she can answer all those questions, if that's okay with you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Just quickly, I don't want to
Welcome, Debbie.
take up too much time.
Thank you. For this specific resolution, we are doing an anti-idling campaign in school pool. The purpose of this is the reduction of excessive idling at vehicles at the schools, reduction of congestion and traffic flow improvements at the schools, increased public awareness and education outreach about this kind of issue, and establish a shared ride services, hence the school pooling, as far as carpool specific to student drop-off and pick-up at schools. So it will be a process that will take place, but that's what this specific one addresses.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Any further discussion? I've seen Commissioner Wilson. Sorry.
I just had a comment. I know the next 4 are equally, and I understand how monies come federally to state and then to counties. I wish, and this is just, there's quite a bit of money here. And the Department of Transportation has been very, very, they're appropriation of monies has been very, very low. This is a lot of money coming out of there, and I'm assuming that a new direction is coming. I just wish that we equally could get as much money, and it's to your favor for TMA, and I understand that, but I just wish the Department of Transportation had those funds that were appropriated. You know, there's quite a bit of money coming out, and I know that there are. Can you kind of address what the 4 different ones, just quickly?
Sure. Like Mayor Anderson said, what is specific about all of the funds for all of these 4 is that they are congestion mitigation air quality funds. And so they are very specific dedicated to improving air quality for funding transportation projects and programs that reduce air emissions for mobile sources in air quality, non-attainment, and maintenance areas. Right now, Williamson County is a maintenance area. These standards are getting ready to be dramatically changed this year. That is the driving force for all 4 of these programs, and that is why the federal government, these are awarded through the federal government. They pass through TDOT to Williamson County. You are the conduit. So, and that is why these programs come from a different pot. And I appreciate your question. It's a very good question. But these specifically address the need to address the congestion mitigation air quality for this county.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, sure.
Any further discussion? I see none. You ready to vote? Oh, Commissioner Hester?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wanted to ask specifically if we are not compliant with federal clean air within a certain number of years, have there been fines in the past from the federal level? Could this be considered at some point a fine as an unfunded federal mandate? We're getting funds now, I realize that. However, are we going to get a slap on the hand or worse if we are not compliant with clean air, clean water?
Sure. As you know, the Clean Air Act, Williamson County was very much involved in that. And these are proactive measures. The best way to answer your question is that these are proactive steps that if we put these programs into place now, over the next 3 years, we hopefully will not find ourselves in that fined situation. There is always the likelihood that we will go in non-attainment, but yet if we have these programs proactively in place and have been implementing them, then that will bode well for Williamson County.
Thank you, Mrs. Henry. Have there been fines, not for, and this is very, very out there, I realize.
Let me help you out here. For the
I
last,
need to see the big picture here, if I may, and thank you.
see if I can help put shine some light on it, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
The last several years, particularly 8 to 10 years, we've gone from being an attained county to a non-attained county back and forth. That's based on EPA rulings, which I have no great deal of love for their measures. But we all want clean air and we all want clean water.
Yes, sir.
And the testing monitors for those are over in your guys' area up in Fairview, from where the wind current comes from different areas. The EPA is getting ready, or in the process, currently our county is an attained county. That simply means we meet the air quality standards that are in place by the EPA and of the local jurisdiction. She's done a great job in her area, in the TMA area, the manufacturing side. This is so important when you go to recruit and you go after new businesses, because if you're a non-attained area, you're going to get penalized on some of those issues as companies and businesses come to our community. Most of the pollutants, though, that are in our county are associated with traffic issues, and that's what she's trying to address. Some of the issues, or you will see in a resolution here in a few moments, is to buy more vans. Currently, we have a van program, it's 100-plus vans. People can call in, businesses can call in. They're given a driver such as Commissioner Danner. She can go by and pick up 10 or 12 people. She can take those to work. It costs them very, very little. These are the efforts we're doing in the area of air quality control. Every time we get one of those vehicles off the road, that just makes it a little bit better for the air testing. Now, I've said all that. What Debbie is here doing is getting these federal funds that are coming through, wherever Commissioner Wilson went, they're coming through TDOT. They never stop at TDOT. They just come right on through because she's applied for these grants. The things she's doing are helping to mitigate what's getting ready to come down the pike, and they're getting ready to drop their parts per million a full 1 point on us. And when they do that, we're going to fall into those areas that we're not going to be pleased with, and we're going to have to work harder at getting that air quality down another notch. So what she is doing is helping us, even though I don't necessarily like the way the money just flows, but it is a way that the federal government holds the county responsible for her programs, that what she does along with the city. Does that help you?
Yes, sir, that
Right
helps
now,
me
right
quite a
now,
lot.
we're in attainment. That's not true with some of our surrounding counties, and you all, about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, we went through some very strict measures, I see Mary nodding, to help us get that way, and we appreciate that. I don't know where we'll be in 6 months, but we've got new folks in Washington and new in Nashville, and hopefully they'll look at some of these standards, because you're right, it's just a shove down of federal and state down to the local level and say, now clean it up, and we're going to send you some money for mitigation, but that really doesn't help us out. This is a step in the right direction, but it is not the solution.
Yes, sir, and thank you. I'd like to thank Mrs. Henry also. Sometimes we get treated like stepchildren. You will do this or else. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? If you're ready to vote, 2-11-11, push your yes button if you're in favor, your no button if you're opposed. Anyone wishing to change the vote, do so now. Record the vote, Ms. Anderson. Resolution passes. Resolution 2-11-12, resolution authorizing the Williamson County Mayor to execute a grant agreement with the State of Tennessee Department of Transportation and amending the 2010-2011 Transportation Management Association TMA budget. Commissioner Hayes, motion. Commissioner Little, the second. Budget Committee.
Budget Committee voted 5-4-0 against.
This seems to be deja vu all over again. So, any discussion on this one? I see none. You ready to vote? All in favor of 2-11-12, push the yes button. Opposed, your no button. Anyone wishing to change their vote, do so now. Record the vote, Ms. Anderson.
22 yes, 0 no.
Resolution passes unanimously. Resolution 2-11-13, resolution authorizing the Williamson County Mayor to execute a grant agreement with the State of Tennessee Department of Transportation and amending the 2010-2011 Transportation Management Association TMA budget.
Move for approval.
Proper motion by Commissioner Brockman. Second, Commissioner Hester. Budget Committee.
Budget Committee voted 5-4-0 against.
Explanation, Commissioner Green.
This is $130,000 for public education and the community outreach programs, and no matching grants.
Any discussion? I see none. All in favor of 2-11-13, push the yes button. Opposed, your no button. Anyone wishing to change their vote? Record the vote, Ms. Anderson.
22 yes, 0 no.
One more time. 2-11-14, resolution authorizing the Williamson County Mayor to execute a grant agreement with the State of Tennessee Department of Transportation and amending the 2010-2011 Transportation Management Association TMA budget.
Move for approval.
Second.
Commissioner Green, motion. Second, Commissioner Dwight Jones. Budget Committee.
Budget Committee 5-4-0 against.
Explanation, Commissioner Green.
Yes, these are the past few pass-through grant funds to the amount of $666,500 for the purchase of new vehicles, which was explained to more prior to this. And there's no matching funds required by the county.
Any discussion? I see none. You ready to vote? All in favor, push the yes button on 21114. Opposed, your no button. Anyone wishing to change their vote, do so now. Record the vote, Ms. Anderson.
23 yes, 0 no.
Next resolution is late filed resolution number 21115, resolution appropriating and amending the 2010-11 county clerk's budget by $10,000 for additional postage revenues to come from unappropriated county general funds. Proper motion.
Second.
Commissioner Brockman on the second. Commissioner Barnwell, just go through any committees?
Nope.
Okay. Explanation, please.
Yes, this is county clerk's office $2 the mailing of all the stuff through her office to the consumer. This is just bumping up her postage meter, let her continue to do this as money's coming from the $2 fee collected. No tax money.
Just very good. Any questions for Commissioner Barnwell? I see none. You ready to vote on 21115? If in favor, push the yes button. Opposed, your no button. Anyone wishing to change their vote, do so now. Record the vote, Ms. Anderson.
23 yes, 0 no.
Resolution passes. Resolution number 211-3, resolution authorizing the Williamson County Mayor to enter into a contractual agreement with Vanderbilt University Medical Center for the provision of professional health services.
So moved.
Commissioner Bain on the motion, Commissioner Chalfant on the second. Purchasing and Insurance Committee.
5-4, against.
Budget Committee.
Budget Committee, 5-4, against.
Explanation, Commissioner Bain.
This is an agreement between Vanderbilt and the county with the terms and obligations to be defined as the mayor meets with them to find some type of agreement. It will hopefully improve the health care insurance of the county employees.
Very good. Any discussion? I see none. If you're in favor of 211-3, push the yes button. Opposed, your no button. Anyone wishing to change the vote, do so now. Record the vote, Ms. Anderson.
23 yes, 0 no.
Resolution 211-6, resolution declaring certain equipment as surplus property and authorizing the sale of the equipment. Move
approval.
Commissioner Hayes, do I have a second? Commissioner Cook on the second. Solid Waste Board.
6-4, 0 against, as amended.
Budget Committee.
Budget Committee, 5-4, against, as amended.
And did the property see this before this meeting tonight?
Yes, that was 5-4, 0 against.
Okay, thank you. Explanation, Commissioner Hayes.
Yes, would you like the amendment first?
That'd be fine.
The amendment, the resolution says that the sale of the equipment will be at public auction. As you know, when we declare things not usable anymore, there's a public auction that has to take place. At the landfill equipment, it's very large type equipment. Putting it through a regular household type auction, auction that we normally have, does not bring the best return. So it goes to a large equipment auction. We've done this for years. You're very familiar with this. In this case, we have items listed, but 3 have come to our attention that they really are not worthy of getting to that big public equipment auction. They are past that. So we're pulling out the 2 compactors and the Bobcat, and we're going to do seal bids and then take either it or what would be the highest price between it and scrap metal. So for that purpose, the resolution would be amended at the, I guess it would be the 4th, whereas because the equipment is no longer needed by Williamson County, it is proper to declare such property surplus and to authorize the sale of the equipment, period, not saying public auction. And then at the last, now therefore be it resolved, just take out the last 4 words, through a public auction. That gives us the mechanism to get the very best price possible for this equipment.
Commissioner Barnwell on the second. Discussion on the amendment? I see none. You ready to vote on the amendment? Have you got it loaded? If you're in favor of the amendment on 211-6, push the yes button. Opposed, your no button. Anyone wishing to change a vote, do so now. Record the vote, Ms. Anderson. Okay, the amendment passes. Now we're back on the resolution as amended. Any discussion on the resolution? Commissioner Hayes?
Yes, may I just make reference, please? Nancy Zion is our acting solid waste director. She is here tonight. Would you raise your hand, Nancy? Where are you sitting? Okay, if you have any questions, she'll be glad to answer. And one thing I think we need to know and need to congratulate the department there. The Department of Tennessee of Transportation had their state convention here a week before last. They came to our Marriott, so they spent they gave us lodging dollars. So it was good to get that from them. They came to be with us. With that was the award ceremony. We received 2 awards for the Keep Williamson Beautiful. This was the affiliate of Keep Tennessee Beautiful. We received, the Keep Williamson Beautiful received a School Merit Program Award for our work with our high school, particularly the ecology class at Franklin High School. We also received a participation award with public participation with our leadership class that we have starting here in March. With the plaque came also a $1,000 check for each one of the presentation that went into the Keep Williamson Beautiful environmental budget. So we're very proud of the Keep Williamson Beautiful and all the staff, and I thought it was worthy that I mentioned that.
Thank you, Commissioner Hayes, and welcome, Nancy. Any discussion, further discussion on the resolution as amended? I see none. You ready to vote? All in favor of 211-6 as amended, push the yes button. Opposed, your no button. Anyone wishing to change your vote, do so at this time. Record the vote, Ms. Anderson. Resolution passes unanimously. Resolution 211-7, resolution amending the rules, regulations, and procedures of the Williamson County Board of Commissioners concerning limitation on increasing the county debt service balance. Commissioner Danner, the motion.
Second.
Who gave me a second? Oh, I'm sorry. Commissioner Beathard, the second. Committee report, Rules Committee, which is Jeff Ford, the chairman. He's not here. 3 for, 3 against. Budget Committee.
Budget Committee, 2 for, 3 against.
Explanation, Commissioner Ryan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Essentially what this resolution will do, Mr. Chairman, is cap the county's debt service, or total debt, rather, at $550 million. At the time where that debt ceiling will need to be exceeded, it would require a 2/3 majority vote by this county commission to whatever level that the county commission deems appropriate. It would also require a report detailing exactly how this debt will be repaid, including the amount of interest payments and the possible effect, if any, on the county's credit rating. And if I may, Mr. Chairman, I do have a few facts and figures that I would like to share with everybody. And I assure you I'll try to be as brief as possible. One of the things, and let me first say that I appreciate everyone being here this evening on Valentine's night at 9 o'clock at night. I first want to mention that I'm exceedingly proud to be a member of this county commission, and I want everyone who is in attendance this evening to understand that every single member that sits up on this board, as you can probably tell, there's very few rocks that we don't turn over. We take our responsibility of protecting the taxpayers' money very seriously. Every single member on this board does so. The purpose of this resolution is not to cast any blame or embarrassment on this county commission or those that came before us. Quite to the contrary, I feel very strongly that this resolution is meant to further illustrate the fact that this board is always looking to live within its means. I cannot say enough as to the job that Mr. Coleman and the mayor have done in terms of controlling and refinancing the debt that we do have. And at the end of the day, these two gentlemen essentially carry out the wishes of this county commission. There has been a lot of discussion over the past week regarding President Ronald Reagan on his 100th birthday. And President Reagan once said that there are no easy answers, but there are simple ones. We just have to have the courage to do what we know is morally right. It was mentioned earlier this evening that this is nothing more than a political ploy. I can assure you this is not a political ploy. It's something that I feel very strongly is the right thing for this county. If it was a political ploy, it's something that we would roll out 3 years from now. For my fellow county commissioners, all of us in this room tonight, we all sit at the kitchen table. We have to balance our checkbooks every week, and like everyone else in here, we have to, before we take out a new car loan, new home mortgage, we sit down with our spouse, we look at the numbers, we crunch them, figure out whether or not we can afford this new debt. It's the prudent thing to do. Take a break, take a look at the numbers, and figure out if we can afford it. Government, whether it's in Washington, Nashville, or here in Williamson County, is absolutely no different. I know we're not Washington. It's been mentioned beforehand that we're not. We do have to live within a set of rules and obligations that are handed down to us, as we heard this evening, from both Nashville and Washington. But as we've heard this evening from the numbers, we have a budget shortfall coming up this upcoming fiscal year of approximately $8 million due to debt service. And that's something that does concern me. One of the things that I also believe is that as a board, we are very good at focusing on the big ticket items. Again, it was very well illustrated this evening when we were dealing with the schools. It's the smaller bonds that have a habit of sneaking up on people. And yes, while we pay attention to our debt level, it can be difficult, and I'm sure many of you would agree, to get all 24 sets of eyes to focus on our debt at the exact same time. We all may look at it at different times, but to do it at the same time is very difficult. This resolution allows us to pump those brakes, slow down, proceed with caution. And again, it's the prudent thing to do, especially when we're talking about the numbers that we are. We certainly can continue to push the no buttons. The mayor himself has mentioned that we need to do that more often. This resolution will also help us do that. And I've also heard that this is another layer of government, and I would respectfully disagree with that. This is another vote. That's all that is. I handed a packet out to all of the county commissioners with these numbers. I'm going to very briefly kind of go through these. All of the information that I'm going to very briefly cover for you can be found in this debt service book that is provided by Mr. Coleman at the beginning of every fiscal year. One of the things that you will notice on page 13, the total debt statement as of June 30th, 2010, and these numbers are slightly different than what Mr. Coleman presented later this evening. They're actually slightly smaller than what Mr. Coleman presented. Our total debt, principal, right now for this county is $498.5 million. When you throw interest into that, we're now looking at $691.3 million for one of the wealthiest counties in the nation. Our debt payments over the next 5 years are approximately $50 million. That's $250 million over the next 5 years. It was mentioned again earlier this evening, what is debt? That's debt. $250 million is a lot of money. We're sitting here debating whether or not we can afford $700,000 for Hillsborough, $300,000 for Centennial. Can you imagine what we could do with $250 million? We could pay cash for 5 high schools. It's an enormous amount of money. A further breakdown for the County Commission's pleasure, the breakdown of our debt service, and it's approximately $342 million for education. Total public works is another $123 million. If you begin to break that down by every Williamson County resident, now this is according to the U.S. Census website, which I have listed here for all of you this evening. This is based on 2009 estimates. We don't have 2010 figures in yet. We have approximately 175,000 residents. Based on the total principal, we're looking at $2,819 for every man, woman, and child in this county. If you include interest in that, we're now approaching $4,000 for every man, woman, and child in this county. For my home with two sons, one wife. She feels like two sometimes. That's $16,000. It's a car. Finally, just a few other facts and figures I'd like to show to you that are not included in here, which I went over with Mr. Coleman today. 2005, our total debt was $353 million. Today it stands at $498. That's over 6 years. That's $144 million over 6 years with a growth rate of 40%. If we continue at that pace, this county will be in debt over $700 million by the year 2017. That's almost $750 million. Now, we're all hopeful the economy will recover, but that's a big if. And the numbers are stubborn things. And these numbers, quite frankly, should cause all of us to pause. The very two last things, and that I'll very quickly show you, is an article from the Tennessean that appeared just last month, is that the state comptroller is going to begin requiring counties and cities to begin putting together plans in terms of debt service, as far as a plan for their debt service. And this is simply following the national trend of limiting government spending. I've highlighted for you two quotes that I'd like to show you. The State Funding Board voted unanimously last month to adopt a model debt management policy. All local and state government entities that borrow money have been directed to adopt their own policies by January 1, 2012, using the state's model as a guideline. On the next page, you can also see it also recommends that governments set limits on the total debt and variable rate debt that they will assume. We're simply just getting in front of what the state is going to be requiring of us. And whether we like it or not, frankly I do, Williamson County is seen as a leader within the state of Tennessee. This is an opportunity, if we pass this resolution tonight, that we can continue to carry that banner of leadership. The very final thing that I'd like to point out to you is an article that also appeared in the Tennessean from July of 2005. Now, granted, it's slightly dated, but according to this report, Williamson County has borrowed more money per capita than any other county in the Nashville area. Folks, this resolution is nothing more than just a proverbial speed bump in the road to get all 24 sets of eyes to look at our county debt. When you approach a train track, again, it's only prudent that you slow down, look both ways, make sure a train's not coming to run you over. If we deem, as a county commission, that we need to increase our debt, this will allow us to slow down, look both ways, and proceed with caution. The supermajority, which I know is a concern of many in here, is 3 extra votes. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate the time. I respectfully request your support on this resolution, and I'll return to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Ryan. Commissioner Danner?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to tag on to what Commissioner Ryan said and point out for me, and he named many of them, that the positive aspects of this resolution, for me, so far outweigh the negatives. He's named a couple of them, but with all due respect to former Commissioner Russell Little, he asked the great question tonight in his opening remarks, why a debt cap? And I think Commissioner Ryan answered a lot of that, but for me, I have 7 reasons for why a debt cap, and only 1 reason for why not. Some of those reasons, the purpose of a debt cap is the same purpose as a credit card limit. It gives the spender pause and allows one to discern a need from a want as you get closer to the cap. It sends a loud message to the taxpayer that we are employing fiscally conservative measures as we steward their money. Yes, the Commission has been doing a very good job, but as the debt climbs, people get nervous. It also clearly communicates to all the government departments that depend on the county funding where our collective comfort level is. I think that, Commissioner Green, you had mentioned in the Budget Committee we had that instance of the $5 million for the 100 acres, and it was a beautiful thing to watch that get whittled down to only $1 million of new debt. But I would put forth that if we had this cap, that it would communicate ahead of time to the department heads. They may not have come asking for $50,000 an acre. They may have come asking for $3 million to begin with. It lays a foundation for the future. It's not a statement on the past. It is a plan for the future. It does lead the way for other Tennessee counties. I agree with Commissioner Ryan. We are leaders, and we need this to be able to send a message that we have to do this debt policy anyway. So let's put this cap into that debt policy and really lead the way. The only negative that I have heard is that it might be a hindrance to this body, the 3 extra votes. And for me, that is just not enough to vote no. The positives just far outweigh the negatives. I don't believe it's an arbitrary number. I believe it's a starting point. So I definitely support it.
Thank you, Commissioner Danner. Commissioner Hester?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've been reading in the government revenue guide that it was a course I took that I paid for out of my pocket, but we were instructed that there are at least 3 components to consider when you do consider debt as a government body. One of those is the population of a county. These were regulations for a county. Population, per capita income, and the assessed value of all real property in the county. We have had some setbacks in property values, that's for sure. However, we have the value of 43 schools that should be added to our assessed property values. That should be a plus. At this point, that debt, or the appraised value of those schools is in the school column and not in the county column. Our residential property plus our schools, we have something in the neighborhood of at least $10 billion of appraised value. That is a part of the equation that cannot be ignored. We are well within limits of the equation. The percentages that have been given by the University of Tennessee CTAS, which is the County Technical Service. Thank you. So I would tell, and I would also like to say, we are not addressing a tax increase at this time. That will not, we haven't even addressed the budgets. That won't happen until April. April's going to be profound. It's too premature to even talk about a tax increase. And I would also say to you that credit in third world countries is not available. That is why there is not a middle class in third world countries. There are some counties in this nation that can be compared to a third world country. And if you have time sometime, I'll tell you about where my mother came from, and I'll tell you all about it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Hester. Commissioner Barnwell?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I would just like to support Commissioner Ryan in this. In my affiliation with the state organization, these guidelines are well needed. I've seen a lot of horror stories throughout the state on this, on debt. I also believe our leadership should come to a forefront here. We are having to have a policy by 2012, January 1. Mr. Justin Wilson is recommending we get debt limits. I've never seen a recommendation come out of Nashville that didn't come with a requirement. So I think we should get ahead of the curve and establish this as our debt limit till we're ready for when it becomes a requirement and we don't have a choice. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Barnwell. Commissioner Bethard?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I too am exceedingly proud to be a part of this commission, and in particular, I'm proud of our AAA bond rating. It doesn't make us unique in the state of Tennessee. It makes us unique in the United States of America. We didn't get there by accident. We got there because commissioners that came before me and several of the other freshman commissioners did the right thing. They made the prudent decisions that got us to the point that we're at now. It didn't happen by chance. I don't see where that can't be true and this still be a good idea. To me, this is more of a pledge than it is a resolution. It's a pledge that adds to the presentation that Mayor Rogers Anderson gave earlier. It's an add-on to it. It's a next step. It's the next prudent step that this commission can do to show our good faith to the community that we will continue to be good stewards of the taxpayers' dollars. Like Kathy Danner mentioned earlier, I've heard very few cons. Every resolution that comes before me, I have these scales that I weigh the pros and cons, and even the most nebulous of resolutions will have a few cons. I've heard we don't need it. I've heard we can press the no button more often, but those to me aren't cons, those are wishes. And I'm going to ask this commission to support this wholeheartedly as a pledge that will say to the citizens that we will continue to do the due diligence that we've done in the past. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Beth. Commissioner Williams?
Call for question.
Proper motion, second. Commissioner Bain on the second. All in favor of calling the question, say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. Let's see, let me get a raise of hands. All in favor of calling the question, raise your hand. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we've got 10 and there's 13, so calling the question fails. Commissioner Smith?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to this, and I agree with much of what's been said by both sides on this issue. It's not that I feel like this particular idea will cripple this commission, and I agree with Mr. Ryan. I think our administration has been very conservative in their management of the county finances. As you saw in the graphs from 2002 to 2003, we've put pressure on the budget every year up to 10% cuts, 5% cuts along the way, and in some years, in 1 year, 0 salary increases for county employees, and we appreciate their efforts despite the fact we had to do that. To agree with Ms. Hester, we're not close to problem levels on our per capita debt ratios or our debt-to-value ratios, nor are we in danger of losing our AAA credit rating. We're not California. We're not the federal government. I think this commission will continue to view budget proposals very critically and thoughtfully, as Mr. Beathard said that we have done in the past, and those capital projects that the county must undertake to provide the services, especially education and safety related, that are required of us. I know my vote will be public just like everybody else's is going to be, whether I'm one of 13 or one of 16 or one of 24. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Smith. Commissioner Ricky Jones?
Let me say off the beginning that I'm not opposed to the idea of a debt ceiling. In fact, last month we'd had the discussion of adding additional money for a new high school, and we voted on a resolution to fund land and go into debt, an additional $1 million, and I voted because I expressed the concern about that debt. What I have a problem with is the 2/3 supermajority, and I've expressed that before in previous county commission meetings. Being a history teacher, our founding fathers tried a 2/3 votes in the Articles of Confederation, and it failed. And that is why we have the Constitution today. In Federalist number 22 and 58, it stated with a supermajority, you no longer have majority rule, but minority rule. And that's my concern. If we come back with this, and I talked to Commissioner Ryan about it earlier tonight, saying if we just wanted to have a simple majority on the debt ceiling, but he didn't feel that was enough breaks. But if we come back and look at it later on with a simple majority, you'll probably have my support. But under the supermajority rule, I voted against a previous resolution in my term because of the supermajority, and I'll continue to do that. Now, some people may say we have that in Congress, but that's in the separation of powers between the executive branch, the judicial branch, and the legislative branch. But the legislative branch does not put a supermajority break on themselves. They should in Congress, but they don't. And so that's where I'm coming from. It's just a philosophical difference. But like I said last month, I'm concerned about the debt, and I voted down that resolution last month. So that's my concern, and I'll stick, you know where I'm coming from.
Thank you, Commissioner Jones. Commissioner Davis?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't think this resolution is the best way to address our debt, but it is a way to address it. And I like the analogy of the speed bump. Makes us look twice before we vote on something like this. To address the supermajority issue or concern, if you look back at, I've been here 8 years. We've voted for a lot of new schools in that time. I voted for every single one of them. But also, every single one of them would have passed a supermajority. And although I didn't go back further than 8 years, that's a lot of our schools, by the way, I suspect it goes all the way back, that when we need a school, we vote for it. And if we have to vote twice and take a few extra minutes to do it, that's no problem to me, and I think we ought to support this idea.
Thank you, Commissioner Davis. Commissioner Cook?
I want to thank Commissioner Ryan for giving us the article on Mr. Wilson talking about debt limits and stuff. But there was one paragraph that he forgot to read or highlight, and it says, David Coleman, our budget director for Williamson County, said the county, which has an excellent credit rating, already does the things the model policy calls for, but it needs to be put in writing over the next year.
Thank you, Commissioner Cook. Commissioner Bain?
Yes, Commissioner Davis just mentioned a point, and I think John Hancock was here. He may be the only person on the commission who was here, but Brentwood High School passed by 1 vote. If you'd had a supermajority, there would not be a Brentwood High School. So from my perspective, and I'm a history person also, and I don't like the supermajority. I don't think, I read something in the paper, I really don't remember who it was attributed to, but they said it's like declaring yourself on a diet, locking the refrigerator, and putting the key in your pocket. And that's what I see this as. So I do not support it for those reasons.
Thank you, Commissioner Bain. Follow-up, Commissioner Ryan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One of the things I want to make very clear, and I think unfortunately we're getting confused by the resolution as far as approving particular funding for schools or whatnot. This particular cap is at $550 million based on the increase of debt over the past 7 years. Our average increase is $24 million. We essentially have about 2 years to play with unless things get really out of hand, in my opinion. And only when we need to exceed the debt ceiling is it going to require the 2/3 supermajority. And to Commissioner Jones's point, certainly not going to argue with a history teacher, but there are times within the Constitution that requires a 3/4 vote when it comes to an amendment, which is pretty much the way I see this resolution. I feel very strongly with this board. Every single one of us have, for the most part, have always done the right thing. And if there ever comes a time where, whether it's we're mandated by the state, by the federal government, or we just simply need a new school, I have little doubt, myself included, that I would not vote to increase that debt ceiling. Now, it's been said that this could create, one of the unintended consequences is that it could create some difficult questions for us. It could. But that's our job. That's, the last time I checked, that's what county commissioners are supposed to do. And so I respectfully disagree with with the arguments regarding the schools. We have essentially 2 years to play with here before we're going to have to vote to increase the debt ceiling, unless, of course, if we stick to Mr. Coleman's plan, we don't add any debt, we'll never approach it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Ryan. We're ready to vote? It takes 2/3 to pass, which is 16 votes. If you're in favor of Resolution 211-7, push your yes button. No. If you're opposed, your no button. Anyone wishing to change their vote, do so now. Record the vote, Ms. Anderson.
5 yes, 18 no.
Resolution fails. Resolution 211-9, a resolution to reappoint Marcia Hines as Judicial Commissioner for Williamson County. Who was my motion? Oh, Commissioner Green in the second. Commissioner Little. Law Enforcement Committee. Budget Committee. Explanation, Commissioner Green.
This is pursuant to authority granted by the Tennessee Code to appoint the judicial commissioner to issue warrants, et cetera. She's a resident of Williamson County from 12th District, and this is a reappointment.
All right. Any questions? I see none. You ready to vote? All in favor of Resolution 211-9, push your yes button. Opposed, your no button. Anyone wishing to change their vote, do so at this time. Oh, I'm sorry. I went through the motion. Record the vote, Ms. Anderson.
Thank you. 23 yes, 0 no.
The resolution passes. Late filed Resolution 211-16, resolution authorizing the Williamson County Mayor to enter into an agreement for dedication of easements with the City of Franklin for a road widening project. Commissioner Hayes, the motion. Commissioner Cook, the second. Did this go through Property Committee? Did anybody know the vote on that? 7-0. That many. Okay. Explanation, Commissioner Hayes.
Bobby Cook is here in case we need his reference here, but the City of Franklin will be widening Hillsborough Road, and they need an easement about property there in order to do that. So this is entering into the agreement by the mayor and the City of Franklin. The agreed upon amount, I believe I found that since the Property Committee meeting, was $43,800, the agreed upon amount for this widening.
Sorry about your microphone.
Was it not on?
No, ma'am. Any questions about this resolution? I see none. You ready to vote? Yes. Who? Oh, Commissioner Davis, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Having just seen this tonight for the first time, I hadn't had any chance to do any research on this. I was just wondering, does any of this cut into the dog park area?
Let me yield to the mayor, please. I just saw it tonight, too.
Greg, the city is expanding Hillsborough Road into the McHatcher. They're making that right-hand loop as you leave Franklin, heading on to McHatcher. It will not get into our dog park, but it is a gradual line that will go into McHatcher as they extend McHatcher through the Rebel Meadow subdivision on out through there. But it is a little bit more cut into our property, and that's why we've asked them and encouraged them to stay off from our dog park. And there's a buffer of trees there, but it will not get in our dog park.
Good. The widening certainly needed.
Any further discussion? I see none. You ready to vote? Resolution 211-16. If you're in favor, push the yes button. Opposed, your no button. Anyone wishing to change their vote, do so at this time.
23 yes, 0 no.
It passes unanimously. Late file resolution 211-17, a resolution authorizing participation in the Main Street program and designating a county official to represent the county on the local nonprofit Main Street Governing Board of Directors. Commissioner Hancock?
Move for approval.
Second.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to yield for a couple of amendments to Commissioner Hester at this time.
Okay. Commissioner Hester?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This resolution is authorizing Leapers Fork participation in the Main Street program and designating a county official to represent the county on the local nonprofit Main Street Governing Board of Directors. We are asking for your support of this. This is a public-private effort to revitalize the downtown Main Street areas, and we wish to address the Leapers Fork area. This involves preservation and rehabilitation of its historic buildings. And we will appoint a county official to represent the county on the local Main Street Governing Board of Directors. I would like to yield again to Commissioner Hancock if he has anything that he wishes to add to this.
Yes, Commissioner Hatch, the amendments requested would be in the resolution heading to insert Leapers Fork after authorizing, and in section 1 after endorses, scratch out the and insert Leapers Fork.
Proper motion, second by Commissioner Barnwell. Any discussion on the resolution? I mean, the amendment?
Mr. Chairman, the maker of the motion endorses the amendment. It was just a typo, so.
Oh, okay.
It doesn't affect anything other than clarify.
Does it need to be voted on? Yes. Okay. Commissioner Hayes?
Yes, if you would allow, Deborah Warnick is here who is the Cultural and Historic Director of the Convention Visitors Bureau, and she's very familiar with the Downtown Franklin program as well as seeking the Downtown Leapers Fork program as to the advantages. Would you allow her to say a word?
Yeah, I would. Ms. Warnick?
Good, thank you. One of the things that we like about this is that this is another way to set Williamson County apart. This is a program through the state of Tennessee, the Department of Economic and Community Development, the Main Street program. April referenced earlier that the county will get points for participating with the 3-star program, but the main thing is, too, is it would make Williamson County one of 2 counties in the state that would have 2 Main Street programs. As most of you know, Franklin is basically the grandfather, I guess you might say, of the Main Street program, and this would allow Leapers Fork to also participate in that program. Lots of advantages from the public relations perspective, and also from a networking perspective. And one of the great things about it with the networking is not only will we learn from others, but we will get an opportunity to share our best practices also. So I would appreciate your vote of support to allow Leapers Fork to pursue the Main Street designation from the state of Tennessee.
Thank you, Deborah. Follow-up, Commissioner Hayes?
No, but I think Mr. Coleman had a comment, if you'd allow.
Mr. Chairman, just like you, we have just been given this tonight. I just had one question under Section 1. It says endorses the submission of this application, agrees to participate in the development and financial support, but we're not told what kind of financial support, how much, when that's going to come. I'd feel very uncomfortable with that general wording.
Thank you, Mr. Coleman. Let's get some of these other questions out of the way, and then we'll do that. Commissioner Bain? That was it? Okay. Let's see here. Where are we? Commissioner Smith?
That was my question.
Yeah. Commissioner Hayes, you're number 2, but you've already spoken. Are you good?
Yes, that was what I was going to refer back to her on that.
Okay. Commissioner Davis?
My question also.
Great minds think alike. Okay, Ms. Warnick, would you?
Circle.
There's a great answer to that. It's called in-kind. The county already is providing the comprehensive land use planning program that is currently meeting at Hillsborough School. And I could give you the long answer, but are you going to have to give us cash? No. No. So.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioner.
That's Commissioner, let's see, wait a minute, Bert. Let's see, who's number one? Think, where are we at? Okay, there we go. Lost him. Commissioner Chalfant?
I'd like to propose an amendment to this resolution removing financial support.
Second. Commissioner Davis, second. Anyone wishing to speak to the amendment? Commissioner Beathard, do you want to speak to the amendment? Or Commissioner Smith?
Scratch financial so that we could give in-kind support. In the development and support.
Or only in-kind support.
Maybe insert, scratch financial, insert in-kind.
No, I have no problem with inserting in-kind financial support or in-kind support. At least be financial.
Maker of the motion has no problem with that. I think that'll be fine.
Okay, and you good with that as a second, Commissioner Davis? Okay, so the motion is to scratch financial and insert in-kind?
You can do that by a voice vote.
Okay.
Two amendments on the floor.
We've only got one. That was the first one.
Yeah, he just made to amend it to take out the financial support. So
That's the second amendment.
On the floor, and you have two on the floor at the same
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
And insert.
Okay, replacement interest.
There was an and.
Commissioner Ryan, you going to speak to the amendments?
No, sir. Commissioner Chalfant expressed my concerns.
Okay. Commissioner Smith to the amendments?
Took care of me.
Okay. Are we ready to vote? We're voting on the First Amendment, and the Second Amendment, I'm sorry. And you've got it on the board. So we're going to strike the word financial and insert in-kind in Section 1. All in favor, push the yes button. Oppose, your no button. Anyone wishing to change their vote? Record the vote, Ms. Anderson.
23 yes.
Oh, that amendment passes. Now back to the Second Amendment where we insert Leapers Fork into the heading. Help me, John, back. There's two
Yes,
different
at the
places.
authorization and after endorses.
Okay.
on Section
And
1.
You've already got that, Linda? Okay, any discussion on the First Amendment? I see none. You ready to vote? All in favor of that amendment, inserting Leapers Fork? Push the yes button. Opposed, your no button. Anyone wishing to change their vote, do so now. Record the vote, Ms. Anderson. Passed. The amendment's passed unanimously. Now back to the late filed resolution as amended, 21117. Any discussion? Ready to vote? If you're in favor, push the yes button. Opposed, your no button. Anyone wishing to change their vote, do so now. Record the vote, Ms. Anderson. Excuse me.
It's been long.
Now, all we like now is y'all come out and spend your money because we don't have to share that one anymore.
Commissioner Hayes?
Jack, before you dismiss, may I bring something to light? We were waiting to, this early on, I started to say this morning, but when we started tonight, for you to say the other directors' reports or chairman report, which we didn't get to. And Joey Davis has been sitting here the entire program because he came with some information about our tax relief program and telling people that the tax freeze program, time for applying. Would you be so kind as to allow him a few minutes just because he's been sitting here this long waiting to give us this information?
I will be glad to. Charlie Davis? I saw him earlier. There he is.
Way beyond my bedtime. Way beyond. Well, somebody call an order breakfast. I'm going to be here a while. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, County Commissioners. Commissioner Hayes called me Friday afternoon and asked me if I would get some numbers together for some of the new commissioners, some of you old ones, I like that, some of you senior commissioners, to tell you a little bit about the tax relief programs that we have in the county. I have placed a brochure at your desk for you to look through, and she's asked me to run through this brochure. We're going to do this very hurriedly. There are actually 3 different programs. The first program in the column here is the State of Tennessee program that provides relief for the low-income elderly. Trustees across the state simply take applications, and those applications are submitted to the state, and the state approves or disapproves. If the state approves those, you and I, as Williamson County government, we match dollar for dollar for what the state provides them. If their tax liability is $600, state gives them $100, you and I match that with $100. The second program is many years ago, Commissioner Hayes, Commissioner Lynch, Commissioner Narron, I can't think who, Commissioner Pewitt, several worked on. We decided that the state program, the income level was so low that we created our own tax relief program, and we called that the Williamson County Broad-Based Tax Relief Program. That gives property tax relief for not only property taxes, but also the wheel sticker tax and also sales tax. So we have a lot of people that program benefits. And just for your information, last year on the state tax relief program, we had 903 people on that program. Year to date, we have 614. So we'll have another 300 or 400 yet to go. On the broad-based program, last year we had 990 approved applications. This year we're at 485. The last program you voted on was the tax freeze program. This is probably one of the better programs we've got because the income is up around $48,000. It's helping a lot of people to get their taxes frozen. And last year we had 1,350 people or applicants who were approved on that program. This year we've got 1,051. So what that means to you and to me, our office last year took 3,243 applications for tax relief. I've tried to go as fast as I can. Is any questions?
Good job.
Thank you all. I'll see you about 6:15 more.
Give the deadline for the time for.
Okay, deadlines, I'm sorry. April the 5th for the state program and the tax freeze program. The Williamson County Broad-Based Tax Program, we manage that here in our office, and we can go up through the middle of August on that. We try to help as many people as we can. Our problem is, and your problem, is we can't get to the people. Invariably, almost every day, someone comes in the office, and you can't go up to someone and say, are you low income over 65? So diplomacy works a little bit there, and we wind up getting them and making an appointment before they leave the office, and they've never heard of the program. We are very fortunate that virtually every senior citizen in the county allows us to come every year, and coincidentally, we try to go on the potluck lunch day and talk to them about tax relief. I like pies too, Mayor. Where is he? Okay, I've tried to go fast because I know everybody's tired. Any other? Call me if you got any questions in the office. I have plenty of brochures. If you'd like to, if you know a church group, we've gone out to Bears Chapel Church of Christ at night. We've gone out to a couple of Methodist churches at night. We'll be glad to go anywhere, Lisa and I will, to tell people about tax relief. If you've got a church group or a social group would like for us to come, and remember, we'd like to come on potluck days, we'll be glad to schedule it for you.
If you bring a casserole, you can come to the Baptist church.
I don't have a casserole dish. Thank you all.
Thank you, Charlie.
Thank you, Mr. Hayes. Any other questions?
Just the reason that I thought it was appropriate for him to come, upon talking to several of the people in regards to what we had discussed earlier, the capping and the potential tax increase, I determined that so many of them, and seeing tonight I think so, would have maybe fit in this area of deserving and qualifying for some of this tax relief. And when I asked several of them, they didn't know anything about it. So I thought this would be a good opportunity that the tax freeze program particularly is something that we need to really promote.
I really thought someone would ask me how much it cost last year after all this talk about money. It's very negligible. It only cost you less than $500,000 to help that many 3,243 people. cost you $489,000. I think that's great, and I applaud you for funding those programs for our low-income elderly. Thank you. Sir?
Thank
Call the question. One story, I love it when he comes and pays his taxes.
Thank you.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Very good. Very good.